Thank you very much all for coming. Thank you very much, Tilo, for hosting this great event. So as many of you are already aware of this ROSIN project we have been running for the last 3 years, my goal with this presentation is to give you an update of what we have been doing, what we are up in this 4th and final year that we are going to start. But most of the actual content will be given by some of my colleagues in the ROSIN consortium that will be presenting also today and tomorrow. So hopefully I will have some time at the end for questions, and you can probably just speak directly with me and the people involved in the technical content in ROSIN during the event. So just to situate ourselves, this ROSIN is a EU-funded project. It stands for ROS-Industrial Quality Assured Software Components. So don't try to identify where are all those words in the acronym. ROSIN is just standing for ROS-Industrial. So about TU Delft, that is coordinating. We are the largest technical university in the Netherlands, and we have a strong robotics institute spanning 6 faculties. There is a lot of robotics activity, 13 departments, and over 150 researchers in between professors, engineers, and PhD students. And we do fundamental research and education at the bachelor and mainly the master level, in which we are starting a master on robotics next year. And we have a strong industrial collaboration, and this ROSIN project is just one of the multiple European projects in which we are collaborating, for example, with Fraunhofer IPA for a long term, very successfully. And concretely, our group is focused on the dynamic control of robots, industrial robots, but also all kind of robots. And of course, all this smart control is software nowadays. So we are very focused on software, and that's the focus of our involvement recently in European projects, not only ROSIN, but previously Factory in a Day, now Robot Union, Agro-Robot Food, etc. So I am gonna just present what is ROSIN, what we have been doing, and then detailing a bit on the 3 main pillars that we have addressed during these years: quality in the software, education, and focused technical projects that many of you are aware or even participating in some of them. And I will summarize a bit with a highlight of the results achieved so far. So a brief introduction of ROSIN. As I mentioned, this is a 4-year European project that whose aim is to speed up the industrial uptake of smart skills in robotics and deploy them finally in not only in the factory floor, but in any kind of industrial commercial applications. And we decided to not build from scratch yet another software platform for robotics, but actually leverage an excellent one that was catching up when we started. It was the industrial version of ROS-Industrial. And for that, we have a small but very strong the level of collaboration consortium with TU Delft, Fraunhofer IPA, ABB, that unfortunately is not here, but all the rest, ITU Copenhagen, Technalia, and Volkshochschule Aachen will be presenting today. And we are not an isolated project, but we are part of an entire initiative by the EU for an European digital industrial platform for robotics. And we are in a strong collaboration with sister projects like Romosis or Opera, and you will also enjoy some presentations from this project and how we are collaborating to create better robot software together. And these are 3 very concrete recent projects that are running in parallel, but there are also projects starting right now or for 2 years, I think, or 1.5 years, Robot Union, InBots, Robotinet was I'm not sure if it's about to finish, Robotinet or finished, but it was a precursor, just finished. End of this month. I know, wow, so. We had the meeting last week. Okay, so this is a continuous initiative, basically, by the EU that is growing and improving the state of robot software in Europe. So concretely, what were we targeting in the past? And it's a bit small, but probably you can see there This was the previous state of ROS when we started ROSIN. So we identified two main barriers for ROS to be used in industry. And it was kind of a vicious circle because there was not enough software tested and with enough quality to be deployed in the factory floor. Companies were reluctant to start looking into that, to use ROS. But if this is open source, so if you don't get enough mass of developers and people using it, you will never achieve the mature state for that. So we had these two barriers: not enough components, not enough quality, that leads to not enough users, and vice versa. So to break this loop, we were targeting two main initiatives. We had two objectives. The first one was to ensure that there was enough software usable, so try to create more software components that were usable by industry and improve the quality of those existing. And we know we cannot achieve with our limited people in the consortium, we cannot achieve that. So the plan was to work with the community to create tools with the community so that they could, our effect was not only because of our direct work on the software, but of working with others on it. And the other initiative was to create enough a sufficient developer base, and for that we needed education. Basically, there were education materials about ROS, quite a lot, and very nicely contributed by the community, but there was a lack of an education program on ROS, somewhere where people could send their employees to learn ROS in a systematic way for a week or for several weeks. So that was something that was missing and we were targeting in ROSIN. So in the end, what we were trying to achieve is to self-sustain the existing ROS industrial community, basically. So the three main pillars to achieve these two objectives were first, address the problem of quality in the ROS stack. So with community involvement, continuous integration, incorporating new tools like code scanning, etc. Then we had the other pillar, ROS education. And the third pillar was use the possibility of to fund third parties to develop with us more ROS software. I thought there was a question, no problem. So very quickly, because you will get to know more in detail these three initiatives regarding quality assurance, led by ITU Copenhagen, and you have Professor Wasowski that will be presenting later here to ask him more about this. We are creating tools for tools, meaning also documentation, processes, etc., that will be open source and are being open source. About continuous integration. We have worked with the community to raise concern about quality, so we initiated the forum in ROS Discourse about quality, the consolidation of the results in that forum in the ROS Wiki. We have pushed for some concrete tools to raise awareness about quality, for example, with a new badge that appeared last year in the ROS Wiki about the state of the continuous integration of a ROS package. We have develop additional tools to identify bugs in ROS. So for example, we have a time machine to be able to reproduce bugs, replicating ROS distro 2-3 years ago, basically. And that's not something very simple when you go into the details of that. So we have created some tools that we have used ourselves to identify and publish bugs, but also open sourcing those tools for the community. We have created a ROS package generator, for example. Tecnalia created that to use a model-based approach, but in a lightweight to facilitate the work of developers. And we have created, for example, in an example with ABB, tools to have model in the loop testing, for example. So being able to integrate simulations and real hardware in the loop for testing. So more about our quality assurance initiatives this afternoon with Professor Wasowski about reactive programming with RX ROS that they are developing within the project. Then myself, I will present a small spin-off project funded by Romosis, another European project, on how to use models of ROS software at runtime for reconfiguration. And tomorrow, Nadia Hamoudet will present a bit more of how to use models with ROS in a very useful and lightweight approach in the ROS model tomorrow at 11:10. Regarding education, we basically have developed an entire program, and Faust-Hule Aachen and Professor Calveit here will be presenting, I think in less than an hour, more details of this, but they have created an entire program on how to conduct education on ROS, and we have basically based the program in two approaches. One, a ROS-Industrial Academy for professionals, and ROS-Industrial Schools for students. But we are counting with on the community too, to spread the education on ROS, so we are supporting third parties and working with third parties to create more trainings across Europe on ROS. And let me just present a couple of initiatives from Delft in this front. So we created an online course on ROS, Hello Real World with ROS, because you actually get to set up an entire industrial-like simulation. So you have your factory floor and your robot. So it's a real factory, basically, simulated, of course, so that the students can try at home, but it's more than the standard toy problems, basically. This was quite successful a year and a half ago, so we are running it again in January, and we already have more than 10,000 registrations. So it's going to be crowded, but we have a good team now with Mario here also leading the course in January. So we are very much looking forward to yet another edition of this course. And on a more smaller, targeted to industry base, in Delft we are conducting also ROS trainings with the same program that Aachen has developed. So at the Robo House, which is a research, a field lab in robotics at TU Delft, we have 4 dates for training, so in February, May, August, and November. And then coming back to the third pillar, we are supporting third parties to help develop new ROS components that are usable for industrial applications. So we have this granting program called Focus Technical Projects, which basically finance small, very focused and targeted projects. So we aim to help develop, and we support the development of concrete industrial needs. So there needs to be a clear industry case behind the application, either for a new driver, for a new algorithm to be implemented as a ROS package, or application templates, for example, for pick and place or palletizing template. Also audits, license or security audits of the code, anything that supports the development of better and new ROS components. And the idea to ensure that there was a real case behind that and not just another academic exercise, which are very much in need to keep research and development, but there are other funding programs for that. We were targeting to, we only fund 1/3 of such projects to ensure that there are enough industrial interest on them to fund the other 2/3. So these projects are around a year of duration, and we fund only 100K, so very, well, small projects, but really focus on developing one ROS package. So to ensure immediate results, basically, something that immediately contributes to the ROS code base. And we have the similar approach to support the third parties in education, basically. So small, concrete activities, trainings, or setting up a training center in ROS. This was open to all developers, either companies, research centers, also with academic partners in Europe, because this is European funding, it's 2020 funding. The scope of these projects goes from traditional automation, robotization in manufacturing, but also in intralogistics or agriculture or drones for inspection and maintenance, and anything that was industry, commercial applications, and we were targeting ROS-I and ROS-II. Initially in ROSIN, we had the impression that quite some development will continue in ROS-I, and there was quite some uncertainty because ROS-II was not released yet when we started the project, not in the even a beta version. But I think I have to say in the last year and a half, 2 years, ROS-II has really speed up, and we are just trying to follow the community, to support the community. So now we're in the last round of funded project. We have quite some about ROS-II, and we are very happy to see ROS-II taking off, basically. Fine. So I think John Azpiazu from Tecnalia will be presenting an entire session this afternoon with FTPs presenting their work, and you will see how diverse they are, so I'm not going through all of possibilities. Just a quick note on how this program, because it's finalized, we have run out of the 3.4 million that we had for grants. So we have conducted 9 selection processes. We received over 80 applications. We funded more than 50. I have to say the quality of the applications was in general very good. People applying to these funds, they knew what they were doing. They knew in general what they wanted to do. So that's why we had such an acceptance rate. I think there were more people actually approaching and discovering that this was probably not the right funding for them, so in the end they didn't apply. But those that had it clear what they are doing in ROS, yeah, they got granted, and you will see this afternoon just a glimpse of all the results we are getting. So just some statistics. So we have projects from all around Europe, quite a lot from Spain, Germany, Italy, but we are very happy to see also that ROS in France and in the Greece, the eastern part, it's catching up. So we have projects from most of the EU. We have projects from all kind of companies, and of course a lot of them are actually system integrators, which are the main users of ROS. And regarding the kind of packages created, we are very happy to see that we have a great diversity, basically, and quite well distributed. We have drivers, we have algorithms, application templates, etc., quite well distributed. So happy to see diversity in the number of packages being created to cover all kind of industrial needs. More about this later in the afternoon by John Azpiazu and the presentations of all the focus technical projects that will update you on the results they are getting. So to not, okay, perfectly in time, just a glimpse of what we have integrated or what is possible now as a result of all these activities, basically. A very nice example was this scan and polish application that we, Fraunhofer IPA, together with PILS, integrated last year. Basically almost at TRL 7, so a relevant prototype and an industrial setup, and integrating results from 2 FTPs. We were using the sensor camera to scan the parts. We were using PILS industrial trajectory generation for Movit. So this is a Movit plugin for Cartesian control of the robot that was used. And we also integrated previous existing software in the scan and plan developed by the ROS-Industrial Consortium. So basically a perfect example of what is possible with open source and ROS for industry. I'm not sure whether we are seeing this demo in the afternoon.
PILS will show the robot with different demo.
Okay. So then I will, it's nice that we have a video. So you can see that the robot scans the part with the Ensenso 3D camera. And then with the scan and plan, the trajectory to polish is generated, and then the Movit plugin developed by PILS is used to control the robot moving along that generated trajectory. and you can keep, you can monitor the process also through Movit and RVs. And here is it in the real piece, how the process of polishing the part goes, using, and actually using also the new robot by pills using ROS to control it. So a very nice example. But more than just outputting some packages, some software, we are happy to see that we have contributed to create a community, in not only limited to ROS, but other tools. So together with the other projects, OFERA, that I think they will be presenting tomorrow, Ingo Lutbolle from Bosch, and Romosis this afternoon, Dennis Stamhofer will be presenting the approach on how to use models to construct better software. We have a set of smaller projects in which we actually collaborate. So partners from the consortia in Romosis, they are developing new ROS packages with ROSIN support, and also OFERA partners have been developing ROSIN-focused technical projects, and actually, as in some of the partners in ROSIN, we have now a small project together with, funded by Romosis. So this really shows the community around robot software that is being possible thanks to the push from the European Commission with the EU Digital Industrial Platform for Robotics. So this just raises one last comment I wanted you to be aware of. Open source needs support, and it's not that simple to instrument that, basically. There was an article last summer raising this concern on a more scientific context, because in the end, most of the research results into some software created, and that requires a lot of infrastructure. And the people here, you all know about that. But decision makers and public agencies need to start understanding also the role of open source and how it works, and what kind of development needs support and funding, basically. So I think ROSIN has been a very good example on how to use research funding, research and innovation funding to push open source and make it sustainable. And we need more initiatives, and I encourage you to think of launching your initiative, contributing to some initiative, how we can keep this push, which I think is very important for the advance of robotics and robot software. So that's a final comment. And to wrap up, I just gave you an overview of what we have been doing, and I'm very much looking forward to your questions, your comments, because we still have 1 year, and we are planning on together on what to do next, basically. What are the next steps? What are the next initiatives? So I encourage you to discuss, not with me, but also amongst you, on how to keep this rolling, because I think we are doing a great progress together. And that's the end of my presentation. So,
thank you very much, Carlos. We already have the first question here.
Yeah, excuse me. So you said it was a 5-year, 4 years. Okay, and you're entering your final year, yeah. 2020. So your FTPs, you said you did 9 rounds of that over since you began. So that's over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So is there plans to continue ROSIN beyond 2020? Are you going to get renewed, basically, and also will there be further FTPs beyond this point, or is that done?
That question, I think, has 2 sides. On one side is, does the ROSIN consortium members are planning on a ROSIN too? We are studying that, basically. We are also willing to see someone else joining or leading the next initiative, basically. At least from, I'm speaking now from the Delft University of Technology perspective. And this also comes into the ROS-Industrial Consortium, and also in Europe, is how to maintain this FTP program, basically. One is with public funding, so a ROSIN 2, and another option is there another private option to maintain those FTPs. And that's more for the ROS-Industrial Consortium in Europe to study how to do that. So we have this final year to come up with a plan for that, basically. I have to say, there are probably small, well, not small, but related proposals, at least for on the European funding side. Instead of having just one project, this is a community. So we are already in a project in agri-food, for example, in which TU Delft participates, contributing the ROS expertise and introducing open source in that one. So whether to have one single project that centralizes that or have multiple, it's up to discussions and who wants to lead in some sector or take up that initiative, which is for example, I think my colleague Karin will be presenting on Thursday an initiative for ROS agriculture in Europe, for example. So just some example of what is happening, and yeah, we're open for discussions and to talk on what you think should happen.